Hello everyone and welcome to the Channel 5 News. I am Idona John Baptist. Stay tuned, we'll be right back after this.
Do you need more cash for that home improvement? Then come to Fast Cash, where we give you more. At Fast Cash, our customers get more funds and more time to repay. But wait, can't come to us? We'll come to you, and our mobile officer will get you on your way. Small businesses, consumers, and taxi owners, Fast Cash has more for everyone. Simply call or visit any of our locations for more. Smarter, faster, better. Fast Cash. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. Serious erosion of a bypass at Pishle was one of the consequences of heavy rainfall on Friday. It was a heroic moment for some young recruits of the National Employment Program who stepped in to organize a makeshift bypass to allow people to cross. Those coming from Grant Bay, like Pierre Charles secondary teachers, were met with the first obstacle at Mitcham Grant Bay, where heavy flooding prevented the free flow of traffic.
On the other side is the same thing. The bypass is compromised as well. The firemen have put a don't cross sign across, so nothing could pass, so we took the chance. Fortunately, we met a past student who had an ATV, so he made us cross over with that, and then we walked the rest. The
30-minute walk brought her to a raging river along the Pishle Road, a route which was initially compromised during Hurricane Maria.
It was terrifying. From the time it started raining this morning, like really heavily, I was concerned because this morning the water was already rising when we were going to school. So I knew there was a possibility that on our way back, there would have been some trouble with the bypass. So we dismissed early, we took the bus, but unfortunately we had to return back to school, waiting for it to get down a bit before we could actually try to come across today. For the past few days we've been having heavy rains in the morning, but it clears up sometime during the day, so we just thought today is one of those days again.
People coming from the south and from Rosa were able to continue on their journey as buses waited on either side to transport them. The NEP volunteers from the community described having to risk their safety to come to the rescue of people trying to make their way across.
We reported to work early this morning, but it was raining, so we were unable to do certain things in the village. So when we came down there, we saw the river was overflowing its banks. Then it had students from the Pierre Charles secondary school that wanted to pass. But at the time, the river was so rough on that side. We had to them pass on top, on the other side, a broken house that is in the river. We helped them. And after we decided to get the planks to put there because some people weren't able to make the hole wrong, you understand? So we put it there. And from that, since around 8 o'clock, we helping people up till now to cross.
Carry their load for them and do whatever they want to.
Okay. All right.
So I had to pass some, for example, I had to cross elderly, like an elderly. I had to go in the river and let us see on the hood and hold hands. And then, but my foot was rubbing on the...
We restore life. Yeah. We restore life. We was in the water, helping them hold their hands. Because some of them elderlies, you know, some of them may not be seeing light, so we had to hold their hands and so on to make them cross.
I'm noticing that some of you have protective shoes on, but you don't have protective shoes.
She actually took out her own.
Because the river was so it was full in my boots, I was unable to help, so I had to remove it.
You guys work in the village as NEP workers?
Yes. Under the beautification project.
Okay, so since the hurricane, how has that mission been?
Well, it was really tiring because, trust me, we were affected by the river, so we had a lot of debris, and most of the debris we had to remove it with our hands using our shovels or pickaxe or wheelbarrows. It's very hard, trust me, and we have accomplished a lot because, as you can see, if you pass up there, you'll not see much debris in the village of Pishle.
Compared to how it was after Hurricane Maria.
Pishle is a village. Any disaster that strikes anything, anybody in the village will come together and make sure we make anything happen. But today we didn't wait on anybody. We just, after what we see, we just had to come together and do what we have to do. Our uniforms, well, it was sponsored by the UNDP. We just got it, thanks to them. And right now we are in it and people are taking us for volunteers, and that is really, really nice.
In other news, physical and environmental planner Annie Edwards says Hurricane Maria would have taught the Physical Planning Division to be guided in approval of home construction plans in vulnerable areas going forward. The Physical Planning Division is responsible for granting permission for land development and regulates construction of buildings.
The Physical Planning Division has always been concerned about development in vulnerable areas. We have the river valleys, we also have the coastal areas. And Hurricane Maria really exposed in a much more profound way that the problem related to people living in those river valleys.
Edwards says a priority focus now is dealing with the issue of settlements in river valleys. An ideal case is that of Lower Castle Comfort and Chekhall near the Chekhall River, where based on her assessment, rebuilding there would not be a wise decision.
When you see the level of devastation, there is nothing that can be done to save some of these houses. They are just in the river valley, the river has come down with a force, it has destroyed some, others are remaining, but you just get the feeling that if there is another storm similar to Hurricane Maria, a lot more of the structures will be destroyed. So it really doesn't make any sense to rebuild. What we see is really gradually phasing out of some of the settlements. It's a policy decision, it has to be made by the government, but that's something we would want to recommend that, safer areas be identified and maybe at some point, I'm not speaking on behalf of the government, but at some part you have a gradual phasing out of these settlements because there's absolutely nothing you can do about these settlements.
Based on the lessons coming out of Hurricane Maria, what do you see around communities in Dominic? Do you see that many people just made bad decisions and built anywhere?
Well, there are different types of destruction, but in terms of land use, it's not all the fault of the builder, of the homeowners. In the case of, for instance, Chekhall, that's why I'm going to focus on Chekhall and Castle Comfort Valley development. The planning department actually approved those developments. So we at the planning department must learn our lesson in terms of not approving subdivision in River Valley. That should just be a policy. Because we noticed that some of the one of the recommendations was for at least 100-foot setback from the river course. But during the storm, this 100 feet was just totally eroded. So what it appears is that in the past, this river valley was much wider than we know of in our time. Maybe 100 years ago, it was a much bigger river, and we, in this modern day, were not aware of that. I went to Point Michel, and it's obvious. They tell us it was a small ravine, but when you look at the shape of the river valley, you see that the people are actually in the valley itself. So it's really a learning experience for us, and that's one of the reasons why we are including it in this lessons learned consultation, because we are learning and we want the people, Dominicans, to understand that, it's something that they have to understand also. So if planning tells you, no, you cannot do it, you're supposed to understand that.
The expectation is that the National Land Use Policy will enforce exploring suitable lands for development.
Earlier this year, we had a National Land Use Policy and National Physical Development Plan workshop. It was earlier this year and last year, and it actually started in 2013, the whole process. And coming out of this, these policy recommendations are actually recommendations on areas that are more suitable for housing. And it's not only housing, but it also looks at maybe new settlements, and probably this is the time for us to look at maybe new areas, more safer areas. They might not be in the south around Roseau. So that would have to be policy decision to look at areas outside of Roseau that are more suitable for development, do not face any disaster risks such as flooding, landslides, and so on. And just, if only infrastructure, if only utility companies provide the infrastructure in these areas, if roads are built and the area is properly planned, then gradually people would be drawn to those areas. So again, as I tell you, these are policy decisions that should be taken, and if they are taken, then gradually the population would be forced to move into these areas rather than, you know, just buy the land that is available on the market.
Local manufacturers can now access government's special recovery loan facility at the Aid Bank at an interest rate of 2%.
Prior to Hurricane Maria, those loans were being offered at 3% interest rate, but government has modified the terms of the agreement to facilitate the post-Maria rebuilding process by the private sector. As promised by the Prime Minister on Wednesday, the Aid Bank signed the modifications to the terms and agreements during a ceremony on Friday.
So right now, the manufacturers, you can enjoy a further reduction or a further reduced rate of just 2% interest. You will also be able to use a bill of sale of new equipment or machinery for up to $100,000 currency for accessing loans. We know the importance of machinery and equipment to manufacturers in particular, and so this will better allow you access to the funds that are available to you. You are also encouraged, and one of the amendments is that you are now able to utilize the funds for post-Maria repairs. As well, it's good news for you to note that you are able to utilize the existing security with the Aid Bank for new loans once the value of the security exceeds consolidated loans by 40%. So right now, if you have security at the Aid Bank and you have the value does not exceed 40%, you can now use that as collateral.
Loans shall not exceed $2 million, and the funds may not be used to refinance existing or future debts. Loan recipients would also be required to present to the Aid Bank a business recovery plan with financial projections. The reduced interest rate of 2% on the special loan facility is also intended to benefit the tourism stakeholders.
This is the first set of initiatives that we've put in place, which will deal with the larger companies, especially the hotels and the restaurants. But this facility has been extended to include the repair renovation of existing hotel restaurant facilities, providing housing accommodation for medical schools, because they too are important to us. The financing will include the financing of renewable energy efficient or climate change or climate smart components of the property's operations, the financing of working capital, no more than 20% of the amount. The loan moratorium will be 12 months. The reduction of interest rate from 3% to 2%. And also the inclusion of other forms of security, such as sale of large saleable serialized equipment. The whole intention is to make it a little bit easier for persons to access those funds. But this is a business entity. The Aid Bank is a business entity, and persons have to come with a proper plan to show that they can use the monies wisely, that they can manage the businesses wisely. And we ask persons to ensure that the work being done on those properties are done to standard, so that you reduce the issues of damage in the future. As a prudent operator, as a prudent business person, one must insure their property, and you should not only just insure your building, you have to insure your stock, you have to insure for the removal of debris, and you also have to insure for loss of profit. So we ask persons to ensure that they do not self-insure. It's practically impossible for you to save money and self-insure and be able to complete and completely repair your property.
This morning we are happy that government saw it fit to approve for the reduction in the interest rate from 3% to 2%. And this will speak volume for our customers, as they will benefit in a very big way. Because though the reduction might appear to be small, but 1% interest on any loan, based on the size of the loan, can be quite an amount to pay. So we are very heartened and I want to assure the government and our customers that this 1% reduction will definitely be passed on. In the agreement, in the revised agreement, mention is made of the management structure. And in the old agreement, we agreed that the bank would approve the management structure because of so many of the hotels, for example, that are family-owned and family-run hotels. And they were not inclined in bringing in consultants to provide them with the sort of technical assistance that is required for improvement of those facilities. We are heartened this morning to have seen that the government, in its wisdom, thought this was not necessary, that we would continue with the present management structures, that we would basically enable the current management structure by providing them with our own technical assistance instead of bringing consultants from outside.
Going forward, tourism stakeholders will be required to have property insurance as part of the certification process. Julian Morris reporting for Channel 5 News.
Despite the agriculture sector's loss due to the passage of Hurricane Maria, the ministry's ambition for providing food for the country has not been affected. Kenny Williams explains.
The Ministry of Agriculture is aiming for an over 100% increase in the production of white potato this year and says it is doing all it can to assist farmers in that regard.
We are preparing for what is known as the white potato season. The seeds are here. We have 2 containers of plants here as we speak. Last year we targeted some 34 acres. We are doing 100% increase this year. So we are targeting 70 acres of white potato, approximately 70 acres of white potatoes. The ministry is looking at expanding the areas across the island where these we grow these potatoes, and we are saying that within 90 days we will have an increase of 100% of white potatoes on the island. It's another fast crop that we know that we had to take advantage of, and we were happy that Propel, who have assisted us in the past, they are assisting us again. And I need to say to the white potato farmers that government is making an investment in that sector, where the government is paying for the plants, the fertilizers, and all the technical support the farmers are going to be needing for this season. So it's like a post-Maria support to the white potato farmers coming from the government of Dominica through the Ministry of Agriculture. So we'll be assisting all of the white potato farmers with the assistance that they need. We are happy that the farmers are responding rapidly, and this is another area of which we want to bring in food security and the agricultural sector back on the island. So we are really starting from scratch, and but we are committed to the task. We are providing the farmers with fertilizer. This program will continue. I just learned that an additional 4 containers of fertilizer have been ordered for the horticulture program. We are pulling out of the port 4 containers of fertilizer. As you know, the challenges with the port. Another container came out today, so that we will be continuing to assist farmers. Farmers are going back into the farm, and we're happy about that.
Meantime, operations at the National Abattoir resumed last week, and Drago described the damage caused by Hurricane Maria as manageable.
We are happy that the abattoir as a structure has suffered manageable damage, for want of a better word. The electricity and some of the facilities, but because the facility were containers that were well established, it survived for the most part the heavy pounding that we took in the other areas within the Ministry of Agriculture. And we were able to resume production as of last week, because there were some farmers who saved and some of the animals were saved. So we have been slaughtering pork and poultry. As a matter of fact, we expect to do some 2,000 birds next week. We will be doing some 30 pigs this week. And we are out there on the market. The not all the supermarkets have been commissioned, so a few of the supermarkets are assisting us, but the ministry is using its own freezer truck, which we purchased as part of the package for the National Abattoir, and we are going around the island selling wholesome pork to the farmers, and we are very, very happy about that. The ministry, again, in building resilience, will be looking at the facilities for the pork and poultry subsector. We hope that we can assist farmers in constructing. We will not be able to build facilities that will sustain a Category 5 hurricane for the pork and poultry, but we will build structures that are more resilient, that will sustain hurricanes, and so that we can look at resuming immediately after hurricane.
The ministry has given itself a deadline of 90 days to produce 70 acres of white potatoes. With the farming community severely impacted by the ravages of the September 18 hurricane, this will not be an easy task. Reporting for Channel 5 News, I am Kenny Williams.
In more news, the Drug Abuse Prevention Unit is on a drive to reduce the notable spike of alcohol consumption post-Hurricane Maria. Andrea Louis has that story.
One of the effects of the hurricane is the manner in which individuals cope with the massive loss and destruction left in its wake. According to the acting director of the Drug Abuse Prevention Unit, there has been a notable increase in alcohol consumption post-Hurricane Maria, which is of grave concern to the unit.
What we have observed is that there have been a spike in the use of alcohol. Now, Hurricane Maria was something traumatic for everyone, and different persons use different coping mechanisms to deal with that kind of trauma, that level of trauma that was, impacted on the population. And we see that a lot of Dominicans have been using negative coping mechanisms to include the abuse of substance, namely alcohol. And you can see it all along the roadsides. Persons have, been using a lot more alcohol even during the daytime. Normally people wait until the evening, after work period, but you see persons abusing alcohol throughout, the daytime. Unfortunately, I might say that alcohol use is something that is socially acceptable in Dominica, and we have always been termed alcohol using population, if I could use that term. So it's not surprising that persons would use alcohol as a coping mechanism after such a traumatic event. But the level of use is a little alarming, and it's of concern to the Ministry of Health and Drug Prevention Unit.
Jarvis explained that the unit monitors the use of 3 drugs, namely alcohol, marijuana, and cigarettes. However, as regards their observations, there has not been a noticeable increase in the consumption of the other 2 substances.
Our main drugs of abuse are alcohol and marijuana and cigarettes as well. We have not really observed a spike in the use of the 2 other drugs, namely cigarettes and marijuana, but we have observed. And as I'm telling you, it's mere observation. It's not something that is scientific, so we cannot give you any figures, but based on key informants and also our own personal observation, we have seen an increase in the use. We saw that some people were coping negatively also by looting, and that's something that's widely known in Dominica, that a lot of looting took place, and some persons preferred at that time to look for alcohol instead of food. The demand for the alcohol has increased because we have observed that there are a lot of informal bars that have popped up on the roadside, people selling alcohol from their little step, or because the bars have been damaged, so you see people selling on the roadsides, so yes, there is also availability of alcohol has increased as well.
The acting director says the Drug Abuse Prevention Unit is working with other departments in the Ministry of Health on an island-wide drive to sensitize individuals on the ill effects of alcohol abuse.
We have actually put together an alcohol campaign, And we started off by doing an assessment because we want to make sure that when we do the campaign, at the end we are making an impact. We are not looking for abstinence from alcohol because we want to know in the end that we have achieved our goal. We're looking for harm reduction. And when we speak to harm reduction, we're talking about reducing the amount of drinks per sitting. We're also hoping to work along with other departments in Ministry of Health. So we're looking at health promotion and working along with the mental health team who could help provide psychological first aid and probably further counseling to persons who are not coping properly with the aftermath of Maria. We'll be doing block meetings, meeting with the young people on the block because we have noticed a lot of young people sitting by the road, you know, and most times when you're idle, you pass a bottle, you have a drink, you smoke and stuff like that. So we'll be doing our educational session on the ground. There are many other underlying causes for abuse, and by discussing it with them, we could find the root cause. That way we could further develop programs that could mitigate the use of alcohol right there.
Reporting for Channel 5 News, I am Andrea Louis.
Students of the convent prep are now better educated on saying no to gender-based violence thanks to the World Food Programme. Andrea Louis tells us more.
The World Food Programme, or WFP, is the food assistance branch of the United Nations, which is the world's largest humanitarian organization and addresses hunger and promotes food security. Head of mission for the World Food Programme told Channel 5 News that the anti-violence session is in keeping with the organization's mandate of spreading the message of saying no to gender-based violence in countries left vulnerable following a disaster.
Today it's an important day for us because we want to say no to gender-based violence, and we want to pass this message also in Dominica, also in a situation of emergency where we are, let's say, restoring life. We want to say no to violence, to women, men, and this is an important message. So when we bring assistance, we also want to make sure that we don't harm and that there is no violence, no space for violence.
Oftentimes people might not associate rejecting gender-based violence with the World Food Programme. So how does that play into your overall mission, I guess, of the food part of things?
Yeah, I mean, we have to make sure that, for instance, we know that in a situation of food distribution or cash distribution like we've started on Monday, we have to make sure that women and girls are prioritized and are not, let's say, put at risk of security, and we have to make sure that the first one to get the assistance. So this is the way we operate.
And why are you focusing on primary school age children? For example, why not older children in the secondary schools or even grown-ups, adults at the various shelters?
Well, obviously we want to convey the message to everyone, and that the message is really no violence. We think it's very important to start with small children and to start the message immediately. But it's for everyone, it's not for only kids.
Okay. Now, this is the first school that you'll be doing this. Do you have plans to target other schools on the island?
We want to, thanks to your support, and we want to convey the message. So we want to make sure that, you know, everybody knows. Obviously, our main role is to provide assistance, provide food, cash. But this is an additional message, no violence, and WFP says no to gender-based violence.
Okay. So will other schools benefit from this sort of intervention as well?
It's not planned.
Okay.
So it's really, we really appeal on your ability to pass the message.
On Monday, it was announced that the government of Dominica, in collaboration with the World Food Programme and UNICEF, had established an emergency cash transfer program to benefit vulnerable families in the country. Silva says the main challenge he foresees in carrying out this task is coordination.
It's challenges of coordination, like any other emergency is. I mean, you have to make sure that, you know, first the most vulnerable are reached, and so this is, we're really appealing to the population to go to their village council, to go to their community leaders, if they don't get assistance, there's emergency outlines still in place, and this is the biggest challenge we're facing so far, making sure that the population knows, people know that they can have access to this assistance if they're eligible, if they're entitled to.
Now, you've done these sorts of things in other disaster-ravaged countries. Based on your experience and your stay in Dominica, what comments, I guess, do you have on our method of food distribution in the wake of a hurricane?
I mean, the initial distribution was very strong thanks to the disaster committees already in place, and so that helped us a lot in making sure that it reaches quickly the people in need. And I think there is this system in place thanks to the community-based organizations, thanks to the government. Obviously, I mean, there were challenges in terms of logistics because the entry points were collapsed, and so that took us a little bit of time to restore it. But yeah, I think all in all, with the government, we managed pretty well, more the government than us, I would say.
Is the welfare program looking to set up a branch office in Dominica?
There is no plan for that. There is no plan for that. We have a regional bureau in Panama, and that will be managed from Panama.
Any message you want to leave for our viewing public?
Stay strong. We're here to support. We'll stay, as we said. If there is a need, we will stay and we'll come back. Hopefully not, but if there is a need, we're always here.
The WFP team is set to leave Dominica in the next 3 months. Reporting for Channel 5 News, I am Andrea Louis.
Since Hurricane Maria, heavy rain is associated with increased chances of flooding in the city of Roseau. Julian Morris reports.
A reminder that a few inches of rain is all it takes to have the Rosa River threatening life and property in the city. It's not unusual to think this way when one considers the impact that this river has had on life in the city over the years. The Rosa River is a welcome addition to the aesthetics of the city when the weather is fine, but when there is a storm like Category 5 Hurricane Maria, you begin to appreciate the threat posed by the might of the river running through the city. What makes the river such a threat at this time is the fact that it has not been dredged since Hurricane Maria over 2.5 months ago. That means any heavy rainfall under the current conditions and you could have flooding in the city. The Rosa River as it appeared on Friday morning did not seem to threaten vehicles parked along the street or even businesses on the Rosa Market, but that could change very quickly if there is any significant increase in rainfall. Dredging the Rosa River will be a major undertaking which will require specialized equipment. Since Hurricane Maria, heavy equipment has been in high demand to facilitate cleanup efforts, but it's also been challenging to source the fleet of equipment and the operators for the job.
So you may have some equipment, but you may have all of the same type and not the kind of equipment based on what I've been advised upon. A company was able to bring some from St. Vincent, but even that they had to bring operators because we don't have sufficient operators in the country, so they had to bring operators and mechanics from St. Vincent and from Guyana to operate this equipment. Every piece of equipment in Dominica is engaged, from a bobcat to a D6 or D8. Every piece of it has been occupied in the cleaning and clearing effort. So I'm not aware of any equipment that's down. If any equipment is down, it has a mechanical problem, or the owner cannot find an operator. And also we have entered into agreement with another firm to bring in a fleet of equipment, and some of which are specific to the task of dredging these rivers in a manner in which they should be dredged, dealing with the large volume of galvanized material out there, because you do not have, for example, grabbers in Dominica to grab the galvanized and put it on the truck and transport it off and put it in. So all those pieces of equipment that we're taking to bring in to assist us with the dredging. But the anxiety level within the government is very high in respect to the rivers and the need for us to dredge it properly. But it's also going to have to be a continuous exercise.
According to the Prime Minister, dredging would begin in Trafalgar and end at the mouth of the Rosa River to ensure the safety of the city. Julian Morris reporting for Channel 5 News.
And finally, Marpin News presents an exclusive interview with Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit on Saturday at 6 p.m. on its YouTube channel. Pleasant viewing, and this has been the Channel 5 News. Feel free to contact us at news@marpin2k4.com. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Idona John Baptist. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend.